Hey everybody, this is the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Beat joined by the one, the only, the legendary Rudy Gamble. How's it going over there, Rudy?
It is going okay. It's going okay. Week 7.
Yep. And we were talking before the show. You survived one of the many zero or even negative bombs out there this week,
The
and
James
and
Cook
got your
bomb.
W. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, those are rough. I was saying like questionable doesn't really mean anything. Like if I got, and a toe, but yeah. But I guess we'll probably talk at some point about that running back situation. Lots of stuff going on in Buffalo.
plenty of
Uh,
stuff going on all over the place. There's NFL trades happening, like meaningful NFL trades for our game are happening. Let's
Yeah.
start not in Buffalo. We're going to start in New York, but not Buffalo. So actually, we're going to start in New Jersey.
Sure.
Uh, Davante Adams moving over to the New Jersey Jets. He had been dealing with a hamstring, aka didn't want to play for the Raiders. What are your thoughts here in regards to Adams and Rogers? We'll start those two, and then we'll kind of work our way to the other pieces.
I mean, it it does feel. I mean, him and Rogers and Adams had really good chemistry. Rogers definitely does not seem like the easiest wide receiver to play with. Or I'm sorry, the easiest quarterback for a wide receiver. He seems to really have like a very specific routes he likes. He throws a lot of back shoulders, a lot of this anticipatory stuff. Um, so it and it certainly seems like whatever his style is does not mesh well with Mike Williams. Um, but somehow Lazard is okay and Devon Adams. So it's a tough thing where I don't think this passing offense is going to support two WR1s because it does seem like a team that's going to be still pretty well balanced. If you think back, I mean, can you think of a very good WR2 with Davante Adams in Green Bay?
No, I actually looked at this the other day. I think the high there hasn't been a 700-yard receiver with Devonte Adams since Devonte Adams became,
Davante Adams.
capital letter, just Devonte Adams. Because there was a year where Jordy Nelson was the one, and I
Right.
think Adams put up like 800 yards, but
No,
that was Adams figuring it out, and then the next
yeah.
season, like he was cleared away the one,
Yeah.
and nobody ever was again. So yeah, I
Right.
mean, there's not a lot of room when that many targets go that direction.
No, so I mean, I'm presuming with this, especially that Mike Williams is kind of banished, like that. So if this was I felt like Mike Williams was kind of the third wide receiver. Lazard was playing every, you know, starting wide receiver snaps.
Mhm.
I think Lazard probably sees a little less time because he kind of goes to Mike Williams' role. Um, and they'll probably say it like Garrett Wilson and Adams are like 1A, 1B. Um, I I don't, we'll see, but I mean, it's hard to you know, I don't think we're going to see either classic Adams or what we wanted out of Garrett Wilson. So I think this is kind of a case where they both turn into WR2s. It's particularly because I just don't see this offense passing it a crazy amount. I feel like it'll stay pretty balanced. Um, so so I don't think it'll hurt like someone like Brees Hall. I mean, maybe you pass a little bit more. Um, yeah, but I'm not even sure they won't. Like maybe Brees Hall sees a little less target, but so yeah, it's and the reality is like Tyler Conklin, who I actually liked a lot going into the year. Him and like Kraft were two tight ends that I liked drafting as twos or threes. Um, Yeah, he probably fades a little bit too. I mean, I think there's no doubt. I mean, Adams is going to get his targets, so there's probably not going to be a lot to go around after those first two guys get their piece.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we're looking at an offenses now. It's Davante, it's Brees, Wilson, and Lazard are both going to have their weeks, but it may be a little too touchdown dependent, and that may go to Conklin. That may go
Yeah.
to Mike Williams because he's a good red zone threat. Like it could go any kind of number of ways, but it does feel like it's really killing the value. And I feel like Garrett Wilson should still get starter snaps. So in theory,
Yes.
he should stay as like a wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
For our game, I would say Lazard moves to a flex play and a good matchup and probably a sit and a bad one. And I guess also we have to talk about the change in coaching as well, because I mean, as the passing game coordinator moves to offensive coordinator, does that just mean more of whatever Rodgers feels like? And do they just run up, 3 receiver, 1 tight end, and Brees in the back a lot? Like, I mean, I could see that with Davante too. In which case, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of it's very much an Aaron Rodgers offense.
Yeah, I think he's just slowly rebuilding the Green Bay offense, the pieces he wants back. So that's what it feels like. And Garrett Wilson is obviously more talented than any number 2 that they've ever had. So if anybody could break that kind of streak, and maybe it helps him getting away from number 1 corners and not having pressure, but I think it's Adams. I don't have high hopes for Wilson or Lazard. Wilson already wasn't doing what we thought he would, even with the volume.
No, but he did have like that one big game, or didn't? I mean, was it this? He had one game that was pretty nice lately, but yeah. I think it's kind of this isn't great for any of the targets, but probably worse for the any of the wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, he was coming off back-to-back 100-yard games, touchdown. Yeah. I mean, he did get 23 targets in one to get 101 yards, which seems, again, pretty
suboptimal.
Ridiculous. I think it kind of goes back, honestly, to what it looked like at the start of the season, where it was 6 to 10 targets, and that's probably where in the range he's going to sit more often than not.
Yeah. So no, I think it's there. I got the case for Garrett Wilson coming into the year. Yeah, this just kind of is equivalent of knocking him down a few rounds, and where I mean, like a guy I really liked going into the season was Chris Godwin. That feels like an offense that supports 2, and the reality was that Godwin seems like he might get a few more targets. That's just not the case. You add Davante Adams to this, so yeah, we'll see. But yeah, it's a there's worse things. You'd rather this than Garrett Wilson hurt for the whole year. So yeah, we'll see. But maybe Rodgers gets hurt, and then they somehow they trade for Derek Carr. But who knows? So
I mean, they are all in for this year. Like, there's no guarantee that the Rodgers plays another year. I don't know what this trade does to Davante Adams' contract, if I'm being completely honest. I'm usually pretty good about that stuff, but the trade happened, not very long ago. So I don't know if the contract details are accurate, even if I were to give you what I believe they are. So I'm going to leave that alone for right now, but we've set our piece here. Let's move over to the only New York team that's in New York, Buffalo Bills. They've been doing some things that we need to talk about here. Obviously, they made a trade. They made a trade for Amari Cooper. That gives them a real wide receiver 1. It clearly wasn't working out with Shakir, Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Mac Hollins, or Dalton Kincaid being a de facto 1. none of that worked really. So they brought in Amari Cooper for next to nothing. I don't know if you saw the trade, but
Is it a 5th rounder pick or?
I think it was like a 4th and a 7th for like a 6th. It was a great deal for Buffalo.
Right. Makes sense. I mean, it should be, he's supported, like the Stephon Diggs had some really good years with him. Like, I'd have to look at it, but I would think Amari Cooper jumps a little bit in value. I've generally projected him pretty well on a week-to-week basis, and it's just hard to imagine how suboptimal the Watson Cleveland offense is. But yeah, no. So I think this is one should be generally good. I don't think there's really anyone that one hurts. That's relevant. So yeah, that someone like Matt Collins is probably a guy that shouldn't really be playing as have like a major role. Shakir's kind of has his slot stuff. Maybe if anything, that probably might help a Keon Coleman because at least he might get a little less pressure.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Shakir had an injury, so he was dealing with some stuff. But he was the 3rd in snaps this week, which was kind of weird. But yeah, I expect
that wasn't him; it was a hologram.
Yeah, I expect it goes to Coleman, Shakir, and Cooper as like the 3 main guys when everybody's when Shakir's healthy. Hollins and Samuels, they're going to get occasional snaps, but they're not going to be meaningful, I don't think, for our game anymore, unfortunately, because I really liked Shakir. And, Mac Hollins has always had a ton of talent if he could ever figure out route running and catching the ball.
Just minor things.
Yep. Let's talk about the other position in Buffalo that's had some attention on it, which is the running back position. Obviously, we talked about James Cook off the top. He was game time decision this week. He's expected back next week. So we'll see what happens here. But in his absence, Ray Davis had a day. He had 20 carries, 97 yards, 3 receptions, 55 yards. Ty Johnson, who I'm sure a lot of people picked up as the backup and, play if Cook was out, had 4 carries, no targets or receptions. This feels, I thought Ray Davis could potentially take the job from James Cook. James Cook has actually performed a lot better than I thought he would this season. But what do you think this looks like moving forward?
I see it just as a 2-man thing. Ty Johnson, I think, is a bit of an afterthought. But I'd still have James Cook. It does take a little bit off of my weekly projection for someone like James Cook. There was a thought that, maybe this guy could get 65% of snaps. Maybe he's more like 55%. Maybe I think that might be for the best. I didn't see James Cook as this guy that you wanted to give 300 touches to. You wanted to keep him fresh, kind of similar to how like an Etienne I think it's just pretty much advisable for almost all running backs. So yeah, I think Davis will definitely have a role, but I'd still, assuming James Cook plays, that Ray Davis isn't a start. Similar to kind of how Bucky Irving has been. That now if James Cook's out, then he's an automatic start. I think Ray Davis I'd have right now on my bench.
Okay, so you're still thinking Ray Davis is sitting more in like the 40% or under snap count? Okay. Because I'm looking this, I believe you, I think I'm with you in regards to where it is for now, but I think this moves to a 50-50, and in tight games or in pass-heavy games, I think Ray Davis is the guy. He caught a 42-yard ball that was a great catch from anybody, not just a running back.
Right.
And it seems like he could just, he's going to make Ty Johnson pretty irrelevant. It was a pretty pass heavy game, and they just left Ray Davis in. So I just feel like he's going to take over the pass game. So it's going to be a little game script dependent, but I do agree that James Cook stays in his role, barring Ray Davis just ripping it from him.
Right.
All right, let's move over to the Pittsburgh quarterback situation, which is just a huge mess. Russell Wilson is taking first team reps. We haven't officially had an announcement that he's going to start, but all signs are starting to point that way. While they haven't said Russ is the starter, they've already said Fields is probably still going to be used, even if and when Russ becomes the starter. So let's just approach this as though, Russ is going to take the first snap of the game. What do you think happens from there between Russ and Fields? And then how does this change how you're looking at the weapons in Pittsburgh? Fields really didn't do anything wrong from a stats point of view in regards to not turning the ball over and the completion percentage and everything, but it was a very boring, dry offense as well.
There's still no sense that Fields, his weaknesses are becoming anything more than weaknesses. The guy could run, not great with progressions. He's going to miss wide open guys. He's not going to see them. So the field vision's not there. Oh my God, I can't believe that the appetite though to go to Russ Wilson. I don't know. I mean, I think starting Fields has always been kind of one of those dance with the devil kind of things anyway, because his skills, you just got to hope he gets the running. This probably just is your opportunity to maybe cut bait. And you just, there might not be a reason. Like I have Pickens on one team. It's like I'm having trouble getting him in my starting lineup unless I have no other options. I just can't trust this offense at all. Maybe Arthur Smith can squeeze out real life offense out of it, but from a fantasy perspective, it's pretty bad.
It is pretty bad. I feel like you have to trot out Najee.
Yeah.
And then
maybe Fairmouth, but I'm not.
He's a very low end tight end. Like in bye weeks, I get it, but
right,
he's really had one good game. And that was 5 for 57 and a touch, if you want to call that a good game. Again, maybe the passing gets better with Russ. It should. Russ can at least go through a couple of reads. I don't know that his arm can still do anything, but he can still at least go through reads, get out short passes. But for the time being, I think Najee is the only one that's safe. If you have to start Pickens, you have to start Pickens, and it may help him. Who knows? It can't probably be any worse. But I don't like this offense as a whole. It's very, very low volume, very milk the clock, and that's not good for our game.
No.
Justin's old team, my Chicago Bears. I don't mean to talk about them every week, but I feel like they're.
Hey, if there's a week to do it, 4 TDs?
4 touchdowns for Caleb.
He had a fantastic game.
He looked like a top quarterback for that game, at least in a different country versus the Jaguars, who look like they've given up. He looked really good, as did the Bears offense. I think obviously they're on bye week, so we'll try and move through this a little bit fast. But Swift is a must start. He's been, I think, the number 2 running back over the last 3 weeks. Who else in the passing game do you who are you trusting in this passing game week to week? Because it kind of feels like it's whoever the game plan is for that week a little bit. And then other than that, it gets spread around a lot. Komet seems to have kind of a base of targets, but that doesn't always translate into fantasy goodness.
Right. I mean, it's hard not to. I mean, I feel like you got to start Keenan. When the guy just seems to get targets, or let's just so of the mindset he kind of earns it. I feel like you got to start DJ Moore. I do worry about. I don't think Odunze is going to do anything to justify starting in fantasy with both those guys healthy. Like the talent, like the guy. I don't see enough for 3 wide receivers just yet. And Komet's fine. Nothing. But, I think now if one of those, and it would probably be Keenan Allen, goes down again, then those guys add more relevance.
Yeah, it's a really tough situation because if you watch the game like I do, Rome is the one, it seems like, gets like the bailout throws. Like when Caleb's really not sure what to do with it, it's Komet or it's Rome. But as far as like the on time throws and the game plan, it really feels like it's DJ and Keenan, and that's really what you're gonna want. You want the guys who are part of the game plan. I love what Rome's shown, and I think he's going to be great. But I pretty much agree with everything you said, other than Keenan may not be a must start for me because I do think he might be a little touchdown dependent. Just the passing yardage may not be there to support all 3 from that standpoint, but it could be. I mean, they've passed plenty over the last few weeks, and with a real quarterback out there, why not?
Right.
All right, let's move over to just backup running backs having great weeks. We've already talked about, obviously the Buffalo situation, but let's move over to Tampa Bay, where Sean Tucker and Bucky Irving took over for Rachaad White, who's dealing with a foot injury. Sean Tucker goes 14 for 136, 3 targets for 3 receptions, 56 yards. He has a touchdown on the ground and in the air. Bucky goes 14 for 81 with 2 and 24 and a rushing touchdown. White has been leading the team pretty healthily when he's out there and snaps. But look in your crystal ball and tell me what's going to happen here.
I mean, so Tucker was the RB1 for the week. I got to imagine in every format, but it does seem like Bucky was eating into White's playing time. I know this sounds crazy. I think Tucker basically goes to the bench and is a non-factor again. He's been on the team for a couple years. This is the first time I've heard about him outside of my database, and as this pure depth play. So I mean, we've seen it before with whether it be a Darnus Johnson, maybe a San Francisco running back. When they had those depth guys. I don't see Rachaad White just suddenly you're the third guy, and there's no doubt in my eyes Bucky Irving is one of their top 2 guys. So my guess would be that Rachaad White comes back. It might be more 50-50 with him and Bucky Irving, but I don't see Sean Tucker playing a role. It's hard doing that 3-man stuff. I mean, was this the same team that we kept thinking that Dare would have a role? Was that his original team?
It was.
So, and the reality is, I think Rachaad White's probably best in the passing game. That's his best. It's not like these are 2 guys that you'd rotate first and second and bring in Tucker for the pass game. So I mean, but it's a bit of a crapshoot. In some ways, it'd probably be easier to just one if White didn't come back. But I don't think either of us are particular fans. But that would be my take. I think I'm thinking 50-50 with White and Bucky.
Yeah, I mean, I love the volume that I thought Rachaad White was going to get, and to some extent, he's gotten. I mean, he's
Yeah.
played pretty much 70% of snaps to this, until he got injured. I feel like I guess I like Tucker a little bit more, and some of the inefficiency of the running backs in Tampa Bay is part of it, where I feel like they don't really have any allegiances to anybody. And so if somebody shows up in a week that, or consistently, even they're going to start to see a little more playing time. We saw Bucky, he's added playing time a little bit as the season's gone on. It's gone from like a 70-30 to a 60-40. So I think we're looking at like a 40-40-20 where Sean Tucker is going to get some snaps just so they can get a look at him. But I also kind of like using a roster spot on Sean Tucker to see if out of this mess of a running back situation, he maybe just pops out as, the ground guy. I mean, he can also receive the ball, and he knows what's going on there. So it's not like he has to get caught up. He's not new to anything. So it's at least a little interesting to me, maybe more than what it sounds like you are.
No, it's interesting, and there's a part, and I think I do have at least my algo kind of has it 40-40-20 going into this week. It's so yeah, we'll have be a little easier to tell maybe after this week. Okay,
Yep.
what's the next running back situation?
The next one is San Francisco, who just cannot catch a break on the injury front. Jordan Mason has been amazing this year. He leaves with a shoulder injury, comes back, plays one rush, gets hurt again, leaves. He was at practice in a non-contact jersey. That doesn't really tell us a whole lot because it's non-contact. But Isaac Guerrero comes in, has 10 rushes for 99 yards, no receptions. Patrick Taylor has 5 rushes for 16 yards, 1 reception for 12 yards. CMC is out at least one more week that we know of, and potentially 5 to 7 more weeks. Who knows what that looks like, really, because they've been very quiet on that front. If Mason's injury is going to be a few weeks, are you comfortable rolling out Isaac Guerrero? Does he become an RB1 immediately? Is it RB2 flex play?
I feel like I'm not sure he gets any more playing time than Patrick Taylor. So I don't. That's tough on him. He still only played 26% of snaps last week, and Taylor had 25%. So I wouldn't go as far as RB1. I mean, I think, but probably a starting running back. Yeah. So I think it's a tough one. Right now I still have. Right now I have it at maybe Jordan Mason. Like right now I have like 58%. And then maybe Guerrero and Taylor splitting the rest. I don't know what it'll be. Yeah, don't have a good feel for this one.
Yeah, I feel like if it's Mason, if he's healthy and he's back out there and active, he's going to get 65-70% of the snaps, and the rest will be kind of dispersed to whoever else is active. I mean, if Mason's healthy, there's potential that Taylor doesn't see the field at all. I mean, he hasn't pretty much all season. So I think it pretty much just resumes to where it was. Maybe Guerrero gets a few, like maybe gets up to, he was 26% last week. Maybe he stays in that range.
Right.
Just because he earned it with, almost getting to 100 yards and limited snaps. That's, 10 rushes for 99 yards is pretty impressive, even in that offense. So it could be a 25% thing, but I'm with you. I think it's Jordan Mason. Patrick Taylor is pretty much an afterthought here. Over in Houston, Dameon Pierce returns, as does Joe Mixon, coming back from his ankle injury. 27% for Dari and Pierce and snaps, 42% for Mixon. This game was out of hand pretty early, so they didn't have to push and keep anybody in necessarily, but Mixon went 13 for 102, had a rushing and a receiving touchdown where he went 2 for 30. Pierce had 8 rushes for 76 and a touchdown. He had a 54-yard run within there. And then Dari had 2 rushes for 8 yards. What do you think Houston looks like in a competitive week?
I mean, I think Mixon, right now I have him going into this week with like a 55% share as they kind of build him up. And then Dare and Dameon kind of split in the rest, like 20. I think I have like Dare at 25, Pierce at 20 right now. I think they started the year with the thinking that Mixon's going to get all he can handle. I think just it might be one where, like, I think this week, I don't know if the training wheels are fully off post-injury. But the right circumstance, I could see him going at 65%. And, like, Dare's played a bunch the last couple weeks. So I'm kind of – and Dameon Pierce showed I really hadn't shown much for a season and a half. So I don't think Dameon Pierce is going to just jump on top ahead of him. But I don't see Dare or Pierce as kind of fantasy relevant as long as Mixon's healthy.
Yeah, and Cam Akers, he actually got traded to Minnesota, so he's out of
Minnesota. Yeah,
completely. But I think it's Mixon who's going to get 50 to maybe up to 70% in really tight games. I think Pierce is Mixon's direct backup in the rushing game. Dare is passing game. And that's what it probably looks like. But I agree that it looks like there's a ramp up period here with Mixon where they're going to spread it around a little bit just to keep him healthy. But this will be a good test of that theory because at Green Bay should be a pretty tight game.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Cincinnati, where this has been a mess pretty much all year. Zach Moss and Chase Brown both came in with small injuries, both played. Moss had 6 for 13 yards, 1 reception for 2 yards. He may have reactivated his injury, but he also fumbled, so it's a little bit hard to tell exactly what caused him to be pulled from the game for the most part. Chase Brown goes 10 rushes for 53 and a touchdown, 2 receptions for 11 yards. Chase Brown also fumbles, so they probably just go back to what we thought they were, but this is also the first week that Chase Brown is out stat Moss.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not reading too much into this one. I mean, I think there has been this slow trend line that Chase Brown gets a little more, and this feeling that, he's he might be a little more of a big play threat, and I think I think he was held really in check until that last touchdown when the Giant defense was just kind of gassed after playing a great game. So, I mean, looking at it now, I think I had him at 50-50 just based on the formulas, but kind of moving it maybe Chase Brown 55, Zach Moss 45, with my guess being that Zach Moss gets, a bunch of first and second down work. It's kind of, I wouldn't, I'd probably rather have Moss on my bench going until we see something different. And Chase Brown is kind of like a flex play. But yeah, it does feel like any week there's going to be this week where like Chase Brown gets 20 touches. but I don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, it was 62-45 in regards to snaps this week. It'll be worth monitoring because to see if it was injury or fumble related in regards to that. But I agree, we're probably moving to a 50-50. They've been moving in that direction and just slowly kind of falling into that, I think. Moss, obviously the veteran, a little bit better in the pass blocking game, but I don't know if that's enough to keep him in that role, especially since Burrow's just going to have to throw it a ton anyways. But yes, I would keep both these guys on your bench if you can. Brown over Moss for now, but that could change in a week-to-week basis. Atlanta, Tyler Algier had his first week over 40% snaps. This is another game that got out of hand. Algier went 18 for 105. He has a rushing touchdown, 1 reception for a few yards. Bijan has 15 for 95 with 2 touchdowns, 3 receptions, 10 yards. This feels very game script. They've been giving Algier work, but I don't think anything's really changed here. Would you agree with that? Or do you think this is just going to be, or is this also moving more towards a 50-50 type of thing for you?
No, I don't think it's moving toward 50-50. It's just trying to figure out, so I'm looking, Bijan had been more in the 65 range, which is what you expect for a top tier running back. Kind of actually want to compare him to Brees. If we say that there's a similar situation that the backup has good juice, you want to give him. Brees Hall's is more at like 68, 73. So Bijan's already a tier below that. I feel like his floor is 60%. So let's say I think like a 60-35 split or something makes more sense to me. So right now my model had him at 59% for Bijan. So a little bit of a boost up from last week's 56. And Allgaier coming down back to like 39. I think that feels about right. But yeah, it's a pretty good one too. That just gets to a point where, at what point do you wear down your starting running back? Are you really getting incremental value out of that? We can't even blame Arthur Smith.
Yeah, they started the season kind of giving Bijan all the work, and then as Kirk has gotten a little more comfortable, it feels like they've gone more and more towards a split in the running back field. Maybe that is because Algiers performed and deserves it, or maybe it's just how the offense is going to look now, and they're also getting more plays because the offense is clicking a little bit more. But yeah, I agree with it. Like Bijan's floor is 60. I don't know that he's getting 89% like he was in week 1 again, but
right.
he's gonna be the RB1 in this offense. Let's move over to Arizona, where James Conner only gets 28% snaps in this one. Arizona got behind quick. Amari DiMarcado plays 53%. Trey Benson plays 19%. Is this a situation where maybe if Arizona gets behind, their game script dependent and Connor's not the guy, or is this just kind of a 1 week blip and you're kind of just moving on?
Yeah, he had some ankle stuff. The game script really went out of whack. So I'm not terribly worried on this one. I have him going back to I'm at 58%. It was the week 2 was the big blip. Connor had a 79% snap usage. So I think it's a little down from where he has been if you average everything out. But no, I would, and I think so. Yeah, I mean Benson seems to be getting, has a pretty steady role. Let's see, probably. Right now my thing is too stingy in Demercado, so maybe he goes down to 55%. It's hard to, but I don't see a switch where Connor suddenly is playing. The Demercado is the true RB1. I mean, 4 carries doesn't really tell me much. That it felt like, like pretty much he was just in there for pass blocking. And I mean, and third down backing, because I mean he did get a bunch of targets.
Yeah, and I think we'll get back to Connor being in that lead role. I don't think this is any kind of changing of the guard. It was out of reach. Why put Connor in that position? I think he's returning to the role. They may be potentially, looking at showcasing him as well. If they're gonna play like they did last week, it may be time to pack it in for the year and see what you can get for anybody that the league wants. That's not Marvin Harrison Jr. or Trey McBride or Kyler McMurray. I think a lot of the rest of the team is probably on the block.
Right.
Let's move over to Jacksonville. Speaking of teams where a lot of people are on the block, Travis Etienne left the game with a hamstring injury, 18% of the snaps. Dearness Johnson comes in 6 rushes, 28 yards, 2 receptions for 16 yards with 56% of the snaps. Tank Bigsby, who we assumed would be the de facto backup, had 7 rushes for 24 yards, only 17% of the snaps. If Etienne is out, is it Dearness backfield or is this Tank's backfield versus New England?
Man, there's another one where I'd probably go 50-50. It does seem weird. We were getting this. Felt like Tank had this momentum, and for whatever, Dearness Johnson, he's always lurking. He's but it does give me pause. I think I'd probably have to go 50-50 without any information. Maybe a mild lean to Dearness Johnson. Right now the model's saying 43% Johnson, 30% Bigsby, 27% Etienne. Although I'd kind of be surprised if he plays. Questionable on Wednesday doesn't mean much. But what's the point?
Yeah, I mean he's also been really bad, but other than that, like, why are they going to push him forward into this game?
Rest.
I feel like 28% is not going to happen. Like he's either going to be 60% or he's going to be like not in the game.
Oh, I don't think Etienne's ever going to see 60% the rest of the year.
Okay, you think this is a split then?
Oh no, I just see it as that, and it's kind of, I don't know. It could just be like something like there's a first impression that was kind of in my head, and I just keep going back to it. But it was always like I always saw like Etienne as like a committee guy. Like, not that he's bad. It's that, no, give this guy like 50% and get him a bunch of screen passes. Get him like 10 to 12 carries. No need to burn him out. Like that's a valuable position. And that's no slouch. I mean, maybe that's like the ideal for Chase Brown. Although I don't know, Etienne might be better coming out of the backfield. Like you don't have to be, if Breece Hall just carried the ball less, he'd still be valuable. So that's just my thinking on it. So yeah, I really don't know, but it's true that I don't. It would make even less sense to have Etienne active and then treat him like you did, like have him play only 20-30% of snaps. So Yeah, we'll see that. I kind of think he doesn't play, and then 50-50 for the other two.
Okay. So I think we're a little bit different on that one, but not that different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still think it's Etienne's job when he's healthy, and I really feel like that's more Trevor Lawrence than anything. I think the Jags would be happy to move this to a 40-40-20 or even like a 40-30-30 type of thing. But Trevor Lawrence, Etienne been together for so long. Feels like if Etienne's available, Trevor Lawrence is gonna fight for him to be out there. That's all we got for this week, Rudy, except the very last segment, the asshole of the week. Let's get to it. I will go first as is tradition and give you a little bit of time. I'm going to start with a guy who helped me in one league and hurt me in a couple others, and that is Chris Olave. I'm not trying to say that it's his fault that he got an injury and got knocked out and had to leave the game. But did he have to fumble before he left the game and leave negative points on the board? That really hurt in certain scenarios. It again helped me very much in one scenario where I happened to win by like 0.7 points and fumble was -2, but still that's just such a painful way to lose. And I know Olave was not the only guy out there this week that disappointed, and whether that was injury related or not, I know there's plenty out there that other people are angry about, but Olave going negative, that one felt like the one I had to bring up here. I have other assholes of the week that I can call out, but I'm gonna turn the floor over to you.
I mean, it didn't end up costing me it, but kind of have to go with James Cook. Like that's you can't pull if you're going to go Monday night. You're going to go Monday night and be questionable. You got to play. Like be doubtful. Like basically doubtful. And there was just so. It's probably one of those. I'm not the most active manager at times, and he should have been my flex instead of my RB. But there really was so little you could do on a Monday night game.
Yeah, in a deep league like Scott Fishbowl, there's not a whole lot.
So yeah, I think, as I said, I haven't tracked it recently. My general mode of thought is that questionables to not play is like a 10 to 15% thing. If that questionable extends all the way up till like close to game time, that's like doubtful. Forget about. Like doubtful is the same. Like there's really no ambiguity. Questionable is like this signal that says might lose a little playing time. You might want to be a little conservative, and that's kind of an easy hedge on performance as well. So yeah, there's always like I'm dialing a guy down who's questionable like that. But man, nothing.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and throw this one out and just call out a whole team here. And the quarterback, since he's leading the team, and that is the Cowboys. Good Lord, that was embarrassing.
Was that
in Dallas of all places as well? So not like they were on the road. This was supposed to be them showing the world that they weren't fake. They were a real team. They are Pinocchio.
Yeah, I would go like they're a fake team. Like I'm a real boy. I'm a real GM. Yeah, it is fallen quick. I really didn't have super high hopes for this offense. But yeah, they just got throttled. You can't get throttled like that. Yeah, it's hard to see McCarthy staying. Like, not, I don't know. It just feels like it's it's been a really rough decade plus as a Giants fan. But the reality is, like, it's just been like they've not really been close, and they and there's occasional signs and good foundation pieces, and then something like Andrew Thomas gets hurt. But the Cowboys are in their own type of purgatory. Like, so yeah, but in some ways it's pretty gross to have like players like Dexter Lawrence and Micah Parsons playing for those franchises right now. But like I said, the Giants have not been a tease for a long, long time. The Cowboys are such a tease, and and with no hope that you'll ever see justice because the Joneses run the team, and
we should just
I mean,
call them. Go ahead. Sorry.
And remember, and like you can say, like in a normal world, a normal team, Mike McCarthy can't survive this year unless they have a major bounce back. You just can't lose like that. But we saw Jason Garrett coach this team for like a decade, and no one ever hired him again. He was like an offensive coordinator for the Giants for like a year or two, and that was embarrassing. He never got another head coaching gig. That like no one was like, oh man, like Jason Garrett was like he had like a little bit of momentum on him early in his career, offensive coordinator, and then it was like, why? So I feel like the Cowboys are just in a purgatory team, and and then Dak's career is gonna be wasted. But not that he's particularly amazing, but it's still not bad. They haven't been in QB purgatory for a long time. To go from Romo, I mean, they're going to go from Romo to Prescott, which those are two guys that should have been able to get you to a championship game. They're not getting any championship game.
No, they're not, and that's that's part of the problem with paying two people as much as you're paying them. You really gotta have a good rest of your roster to kind of do that, and they seem to build around those big contracts rather than get the players in place and then have the big contracts. Obviously, that's a lot of timing with quarterbacks. You either have one or you don't, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting with, Mike McCarthy, as you mentioned, Jason Garrett was there for so long. Just anybody who will kind of let Jerry run the show seems to have some level of security. But, I mean, Jerry was not happy after this one. This is one that he's had plenty of clips out already this week. He is not very happy. So we will see what happens. I imagine there's got to be some kind of change. I would assume they go coordinators before they go with McCarthy, but I would have said the same thing in New York for the Jets, and we know what happened there. So we will continue to monitor that one, but I had to throw an extra asshole of the week for the bomb that the Cowboys dropped on themselves in this one.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for us, though. Rudy, if anybody has any specific questions, find us on Twitter. I'm at RazBeaton, at Rudy Gamble, youtube.com/Razzball Fantasy. Go out there, like, subscribe, rate, review wherever you watch us or listen to us. Until then, we'll talk to you later. See you, Rudy.